we will be going for about an hour long. We have panelists who will be presenting the Columbia 101 PowerPoint that was given during the summer sessions. It'll run about 20 to 30 minutes. Please feel free to submit any of your questions anytime during and or after the presentation. We have other organizers who are advising deans answering these questions chat style. We'll be bumping some of these questions to the presenters who will verbally answer your questions that you can listen into. The panelists today are Chad Gifford and Aileen Forbes, and the organizers, also people handling the chat questions. We have Delia Adu-Preche, Christy Barbacane, Cindy Codgill, Kristen Gager, Dawn Hemphill, Lauren Orr, Danielle Wong Assumption, and myself, Josh Gaynor. Sorry for not introducing myself earlier. And also we have, as I mentioned, another webinar for Cs tonight from 6 to 7. We also have another CC webinar offered at night. It's going to be on Wednesday, July 30th, 2 weeks from now, from 6 to 7 for those who can't get on during the day. Please ask questions anytime, and I'm going to hand it over to Chad and Aileen. All yours.
All right. Welcome, everyone. I'm Aileen Forbes. I'm an advising dean here in the Center for Student Advising, and I'm joined with my colleague, Chad Gifford. Chad, do you want to say hello?
Hello there, everybody, and good afternoon. My name is Chad Gifford, and I'm happy to meet you all virtually.
Great. Well, thank you all for joining us for our Columbia 101 webinar for Columbia students. Just quick recap of the format of our session. So Chad and I will present the Columbia 101 program, which is intended to offer some basic useful information to prepare you for your arrival on campus in just under 6 weeks, and we're really excited to see you very soon. As we run through the material, we invite you to post any questions you might have. The questions do not have to directly pertain to what we're talking about at the moment. Please feel free to post anything that's on your mind using the chat box function to the right of your screen. We have colleagues standing by to answer your questions via the chat box. Some of your questions may be bumped up to Chad and myself so that we can answer them directly. We'd like this session to be as interactive as possible, so please do not hesitate to post your questions. The material we will cover covers about 4 major topics. We'll talk about the transition from high school to college. We'll discuss the advising resources at Columbia. We'll talk about the basic requirements for the Columbia College degree, including an overview of the core curriculum, which I hope you've heard of by now. And we'll discuss how to plan your fall schedule and how to register for classes. Again, hopefully we'll be taking questions throughout our presentation, but we'll have time at the end of the presentation for a question and answer period. So again, congratulations to all of you on your high school graduation. Hope you're taking the time now this summer to relax and refresh a little bit before you arrive here in the fall and take some time to reflect on your goals. When you get here, you might find that you'll have more freedom than you might have had in the past, and with this freedom comes more responsibility. You'll be constantly making choices about your time, your priorities, how you will engage with the community. The role of your parents, the role that they've had in your day-to-day lives will likely change. It will become your responsibility to be the primary spokesperson for yourself in your interaction with faculty and administrators. Of course, you will have advisors along the way to guide and to support you, but you will be ultimately responsible for your educational path here and the experience of the community and the resources here. Just to talk about some concrete structural changes, typically in high school you may have experienced a more rigid schedule, maybe comprising 7 to 8 periods each day where you attended a particular class at a particular period every day. At Columbia, you will be taking likely fewer classes, maybe 4 or 5 classes per term. That would correspond to 15 or 16 credits. Classes, for the most part, do not meet daily, but more typically they will meet twice a week, maybe 3 times a week, sometimes even once a week, depending on the type of class you will be taking. And your schedule will be unique to you. You will design your own schedule. Our classes meet anywhere from 8:30 in the morning to 8-9 p.m. in the evening. Each class will carry a certain number of credits depending on the type of class. 1 to 5 credits. The majority of classes carry about 3 to 4 credits each. If I give you a rough formula, 1 credit corresponds to about 1 hour of class time per week, so that if you register for 15 credits of coursework, you can expect to be in class for about 15 hours per week, which therefore leaves a lot of unstructured time. Another rough formula is that for every hour that you are in class, you will be assigned about 3 hours of out-of-class work, including readings, problem sets, writing assignments, etc. So time management is of the essence. You'll be tasked to balance your class attendance, your out-of-class assignments, and the other activities that you will be participating in. Just to mention a little bit about changes in the academic content, while you'll be taking fewer classes, you'll also have fewer assessments, fewer graded assignments than you may have had in high school. For a humanities class, for example, typically you might have 2 papers and 2 exams, a midterm and a final. For a science course, you might have 2 midterm exams and 1 final, something of that nature. The pace and the intensity, the level of engagement of the college courses will likely be different from high school, and I would just advise you to bear in mind that learning is a process, that A might not come as easily or as immediately, but if you remain open and willing to learn from your instructors and your classmates, you'll get there. You'll find that you will be learning. So I guess the last piece of advice I'd give in terms of making that transition is that less is more. I would encourage you to reflect on how deeply and thoroughly you are engaging in each of your courses with a view of getting the most out of your education qualitatively rather than quantitatively taking as many credits as possible. Consider limiting your commitments for the sake of more meaningful engagement. You might find it a more enriching and more sane experience here. So those are some ideas about transition. I want to send it over to Chad to talk about advising at Columbia.
Thank you, Aileen, and once again, thanks to all of the students who showed up to today's webinar. And we really look forward to meeting everybody on campus very soon. And I appreciate Aileen's comments about the transitioning from high school to college. And some of the things I heard is that less is more, that it's a matter of quality now. And I guess I always want to add one more thing, which is, you're in charge of taking care of yourself, and that includes taking care of your body, so being healthy, getting enough sleep, and eating well and exercising if that's your thing. And there's going to be no one really on a daily basis telling you to do that. You're not going to be with your family. So managing just the logistics of your life becomes so important. It's part of the freedom and responsibility that you're given when you come to college. So as you see, the next slide that we're looking at is about advising at Columbia, and this is something that we take very, very serious. As you'll see, there is a network of advisors surrounding you when you get to college, when you get to Columbia. And it's sort of an embarrassment of riches, and we have the luxury at Columbia to really put together many offices, many people, many advisors in your life where you can go to get lots of answers to all of your questions. It's a unique advising system, we like to think, because it is so comprehensive and it's so broad. As you can see, Aileen and I are from something called the Center for Student Advising. So we're an office full of professional advisors who you will work with for the entire time that you're in Columbia. So you'll be assigned when you, at some point in August, you'll hear from your advising dean from the Center for Student Advising, and that person will be with you again for 4 years. And it might be me, it might be Aileen, it could be any one of our many colleagues. And the good news is you'll get to know that person, you'll come to see that person, or email with that person, or call with that person as often as you like to get all the answers to all of your questions. If we don't actually have an answer to your question, we're good enough to know where to send you and refer you for further help. Again, the network of advisors around you is tremendously large, as you'll see in a second when we describe some of the resources available to you. One of the bullet points on this slide says the role of faculty advising. We're not faculty members per se. We're not going to help you negotiate, for example, all of your requirements in your major. In your sophomore year, you're going to declare your major. But even starting from day one, you have every right in the world to go find faculty advisors, people who will mentor you and help you and advise you specifically in your academic pursuits, particularly in your major. And we work with faculty in advising, and we take great pride in our relationships with faculty here at Columbia. So again, together, all of us are a network supporting students. So you'll be talking to faculty one day, then you'll want to stop by and see your advising dean in the Center for Student Advising, and that's the way it works. So if we look at the next slide, for example, this is just a graphical representation of what we consider to be your community of advisors. And I don't need to talk about each of these boxes, but as you can see, at the top center two boxes are your faculty and departmental advisors. So those are going to be the actual faculty member and department administrators who will help you negotiate your curriculum choices, particularly in the major. And then the other box is your advising dean at the Center for Student Advising. But if you go around the circle, you see that you have all these other great places to go to get help, whether it's the university chaplains or whether it's an advisor in your dormitory, your residential advisor. We have a great office of global programs if you're interested in studying abroad, fellowship programs, around and around we go. One thing I like to say to students is you're going to get the information you need. You sometimes have to be persistent and you have to follow up on referrals and make sure that you take that extra step to get the help that you need when you need something. But somewhere out there in one of these offices, you're going to get a lot of help from somebody who really cares to help you and to help you move forward. So keep that graphic in mind and just remember that there's a lot of people here to help you. Let's take a look at the next slide. So as I said, your advising dean, one of us here in the Center for Student Advising, is going to be your primary point of contact for lots of different things. And you'll get a lot of support and a lot of answers, and you'll get a lot of work done in the office of your advising dean. Our Center for Student Advising is located in the student building, which is Lerner Hall on the main campus. So students come through here all the time. And your advisor will be the primary point for a lot of different things. And again, if we can't immediately answer your question, not only are we going to refer you out to talk to a faculty member or go see somebody in the residential programs office, we're going to try to follow up with you too to make sure that you've got the help and support that you need. So if you just scan this list, you can see that there are a lot of reasons to seek help from your advisor. Everybody's going to do very well at Columbia. There might be moments when things aren't going so well. So if you're having a concern or a difficult situation, please come see your advising dean in the Center for Student Advising. We want to be able to talk to you very openly and honestly about your plans and your goals and your aspirations as a student at Columbia, whether that means for the next 4 years or whether it means for the next 4 decades. We really want to talk broadly about some of your interests. So we're very good at the nuts and bolts of student life at Columbia, so we know how to help you register for classes and how to register for a pass-fail grading option. These are some technical issues, but also we're very curious about who you are, what makes you tick, and what direction you're going in your career, in your life, and in your academics. I'm not going to read all these bullet points to you, but you can see them all there. I do like to highlight the study abroad bullet point only because I think that the statistic now is about 25% of our students do take a semester or summer to study abroad. So we're a perfect resource to come and speak to us about your thoughts for studying abroad. I think that's it for advising. We're proud of our advising at Columbia, and we really want you to take full advantage of the resources that we're going to offer you. So let's move on. Basic requirements for the Columbia College degree. So I'll talk quickly and generally about these basic requirements, and then Aileen's going to lean in more and talk about some of the specifics, especially as it relates to the core curriculum. So it's not very complicated. You are asked to graduate and finish all of your requirements in 4 years. That means you have 8 semesters, 2 full semesters every year, fall semester and a spring semester. You also have the opportunity, if you so choose, to study during our summer sessions, but the general rule of thumb is you need to graduate in 4 years. There are 3 elements, basic elements to the college, the degree in the college. You have a very simple credit requirement. So a minute ago, Aileen was talking about your general average course load or credit load per semester. In 4 years, we're asking you to complete 124 credits. You can quickly do the math in your head, and you see that on average, that means students are completing about 31 credits a year. If in your first year you happen to complete less than 31, it simply means that you have to make up a few credits at a later semester or in a later year. But on average, you're looking to complete about 31 credits a year. She mentioned some of the average course load per semester. There you see it written out. 15 to 16 credits is pretty typical a semester. We have a lot of students who come to Columbia in their first year, and this is the superhero complex. All of you did very, very well in high school, and you took lots of classes, and you had busy extracurricular lives, and your resume is quite packed with all of your success. Aileen mentioned the concept of emphasizing quality over quantity, and your first test is in your first semester at Columbia. You will meet fellow first-year students who will be talking about taking 6 and 7 classes. We really emphasize and recommend that you think hard about what classes you want to take and how many. 4 classes in your, and here we're talking about full regular size classes, so maybe 3 credit class or a 4 credit class. We're asking you to think hard and long about taking 4 classes in your first semester. You'll hear some people talk again about taking more than that. In our experience, when students end up taking 4 classes in their first semester at Columbia, they tend to do very well. They tend to experience a great boost in confidence as they get good grades in their first semester at Columbia, and it just leads into later semesters of greater success, versus some superhero students who think they want to take 6 classes, and that inevitably is a struggle and hard because of the sheer volume of the work required, and also because you're undergoing a great transition to life at college. So again, this is a perfect topic for you to talk about with your advising dean when you get to campus. You'll have plenty of opportunity to talk to older students, other students, and advisors, including your advising dean, when you get to campus. And we really recommend that this is one of the topics you talk about. How many classes should you take? The other elements to your requirements, your basic requirements, besides the 124 credits, include the core curriculum, which Aileen will talk about right now, and the requirements for a major. So I will hand it over.
All right, so the core curriculum. It is the cornerstone of the Columbia undergraduate education since 1919. These are Columbia-specific courses, meaning that you cannot place out of any of the core courses except for language and potentially music hum by an exemption exam, which I'll mention a little bit later. And all these courses, all the core courses have to be taken at Columbia, again with the exception of language and potentially global core courses. You may have the opportunity to fulfill at least one of your global core requirements if you do study abroad. The objectives of the core is that the objectives are to train students to think critically, independently, with some complexity and nuance, to train students to communicate effectively in written and spoken language, to be able to develop an informed and dynamic understanding of the world you inhabit, to engage in and to interpret this world, and ultimately to be an active and responsible citizen of the world. It boils down to the basic goal of a liberal education, which is to learn how to think and how to make choices about the life on which you are embarking. So if we speak about the components of the core curriculum, at the very heart of the core, we have Columbia's two signature courses, the foundation of the core curriculum, Literature, Humanities, and Contemporary Civilization. Both of these courses are fairly intense. They're 2 semesters long, a year-long sequence, each term bearing 4 credits. Literature, Humanities, which you will be taking in your first year, covers a survey of the masterpieces of Western literature, from ancient Greek epics, dramas, lyric poetry, and history, to the modern novel. The course addresses how to read and interpret literature, and encompasses a broad survey of literary history across 3 millennia, and considers literature as a mode of representation, of inquiry, and knowledge. The heart of Lit Hum is the question, what does it mean to be a human being? Contemporary Civilization, I consider the Lit Hum's twin course. It's the course that you will be taking in your sophomore year. CC, as we call it, is a survey of the masterpieces of mostly Western political philosophy and theory, covering the most influential thinkers who have shaped the course of Western civilization. You'll be reading major political philosophers, from Plato to Machiavelli to Hobbes, to Enlightenment thinkers like Locke and Rousseau, to the fathers of modern discourse, Nietzsche, Darwin, and Freud. So the main question of Lit Hum is, what does it mean to be a human being? The main question of CC is how do we live with other people? So outside of these 2 year-long courses, we have some other courses that are a little bit lighter. Art Humanities and Music Humanities are each 1 semester, and they each carry 3 credits. But they have the same goal of developing critical thinking by engaging other media disciplines and or perspectives. Art Humanities considers how visual artists address some of the same issues we encounter in Lit Hum and CC, but through visual media, architecture, sculpture, and painting, considering visual media, architecture, sculpture, and painting as a different kind of text and how to interpret them. Music Humanities engages the medium of sound and the skill of listening. It as well covers the history and elements of music composition. If some of you have a strong background in music, you might consider taking an exemption exam that is offered by the music department, and it's offered on a one-time only basis. So you will have that opportunity during the first week of classes. I did actually receive some information about that exam this morning. It's scheduled on September 5th at 10 a.m. So apart from these 4 courses that I mentioned, which have standard syllabi, there's also the global core requirement. And this requirement involves courses that present non-Western perspectives. It's intended to supplement a more Western-centric core in order to enable students to gain a more global understanding of cultural development. The requirement is that you would take 2 courses from an approved list of department offerings drawn from an array of disciplines and world regions, such as Africa, the Middle East, Asia, and Latin America. The remaining core, you'll have university writing, which you are required to take in your first year. The course that trains students in the skills for critical composition and managing source texts. The science requirement has 3 components. The first is the course Frontiers of Science, which you will also be required to take in the first year. Frontiers is intended to teach students how to think scientifically. If you can imagine a science course that is a humanities course, this is kind of what Frontiers is. It's to enable you to learn how to engage the world informed with a scientific mindset and basic scientific skills. It covers 4 modules, one on earth science, 2 on physical science, a second on physical science, and then 2 on the biological sciences. In addition to Frontiers, you will be asked to take 2 additional terms of science courses. One of these courses can be a purely quantitative course, such as math or computer science, but the other one has to be a qualitative science course. The foreign language requirement. You will be asked to demonstrate proficiency of a language other than English, equivalent to 4 semesters of college language instruction. Columbia offers over 40 different languages here. This is a requirement that you can satisfy in any number of ways, through your AP scores, your SAT subject tests, through placement exams. So if you have studied a language in high school and you want to try to place at a more advanced level or try to place out of a language, make sure that you learn when the language placement exams are being offered during new student orientation. Also, it's generally required that you complete the language requirement to study abroad. Finally, the core also requires physical education, so you do have to take 2 semesters of gym. Each semester of gym that you take, you earn 1 point, and you can earn up to 4 to count toward the degree. If you are an athlete, you will actually earn PE credit for semesters in which you compete and train, so up to 4 credits as well. So athletes do not have to take PE. Dance courses actually count toward PE, though Columbia College students are required to take 1 Columbia PE before a dance course can apply toward the PE degree. And last but not least, of course, you do still have a swim test, which encompasses 3 laps of a 25-meter pool. So that's what we have for the core. I think we have a question popped up here.
You know, Aileen, what I might like to say is that I see that the audiences are posting lots of great questions, and we have our colleagues who are answering them. So I just want to say that people. That's great. Let's work on that. I just want to say to everybody, keep it up. This is great.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good stuff flowing around.
So one that was Nicole Thelma sent us a question: when will we find out our Lit Hum section, and when will we find out whether we're taking University Writing Frontiers? That's an excellent question. So first-year students will be pre-registered in Lit Hum and University Writing Frontiers, and those assignments will be posted on your SSOL grade screen around mid-August. So check around mid-August to see your pre-registered core courses. Okay.
And I have a question that just came to me as well, and it is from Sanchit Jean, and it's a question about taking multiple languages. So the student is thinking about perhaps taking 2 languages, and the general rule of thumb is if you have an interest and a desire at Columbia to do something, you should be able to do it. It just requires a little bit of planning. So this, again, is one of those great conversations you should take up right away with your advising dean or other older students who've burned this trail before you. And you should expect, if you organize and plan well, that you can definitely take 2 languages. So whether you want to take them at the same time or sequence them one after the other, it really has to do with what some of your other classes and other interests will be. But again, the easy answer is you absolutely can study 2 languages at college. And just keep in mind that it has a lot to do with your greater plans and your greater goals for your time at Columbia.
Great. I received a question as well from Shambhavi Tiwari, who asked, when should I buy the required books for my classes? As an international student, where should I buy them, and how do I know which exact books are required? That's a good question. So in the directory of classes, so there's a site where you can see all the course offerings in the upcoming semester. In the box giving, I mean, I'll show you a slide, a visual of a entry from the Director of Classes in a moment. But there can be a link to the textbooks that are offered for that class. So you can look in, I mean, not all professors put them up, but many of them do put up the textbook information before registration so you could see which books are required. And they usually will already indicate the ISBN number, so it will indicate the exact edition that the course will be using. For the core courses, for example, Literature Humanities, the syllabus for Lit-Hum is online. So if you go into the college bulletin and click on the Lit-Hum website, you'll find the syllabus there, and I do believe that it indicates the editions that we use. So in terms of buying these books, I mean, I think many students will go through Amazon. Is that your sense, Chad? Chad? Anyway, okay, so
hey there, honey. Yeah, no, I'm here. I'm here. Hi, Eileen. I'm sorry, I missed that last part because.
The question is, you know, do you find that many of your advisees order their books from Amazon or Barnes & Noble online?
Yep. We here in the Student Center, we happen to share the same floor with the Package Center, and we see mountains of Amazon boxes coming in all the time, especially at the beginning of the semester. So that's a normal place to go, but the good rule of thumb is to wait until you get to campus and hear what your professor has to say, because you may not end up taking the class that you thought you would take, or your professor might have a special deal at a local bookstore or something like that. So in general, wait to that first class and then see what your professor has to say.
Okay.
Great.
Do you have I have another. You have one?
Let's go to the next slide, and if we back up on questions, we can hit them at the end.
Okay. Oops, sorry. So, sending it over to you.
Right. So we're going to talk a little bit about putting together your class, starting to think about your class schedule for the fall. And we're going to get into some general ideas, and then there's actually some very technical issues that we're going to show you about registering for classes in the fall. And here's our general rule of thumb here is we're just going to give you a little exposure to this process, but we don't want it to be overwhelming or intimidating. So just take a look at it, process it a little bit today, and then we can make this promise to you that when you get to school, when you get to campus for orientation, you will become experts at the issue of registration. You will have plenty of older students to talk to. You will have advising deans to talk to. You will have handouts. You will have websites. You will have guided videos. You'll have a lot of resources that will tell you how to manage the issue of registration. Every university does it a little bit differently. We happen to be proud of the way our system works. It's all done online, electronically, and your first semester through it can be a little bit alien, but you will become an expert very quickly, and there will be a lot of people here to help you. That's the technical part. The more general part is, as you've learned so far, you will be assigned, as Eileen was telling you, to a very important class in the core curriculum called Literature Humanities. So when you show up on campus, you will log into your Student Service Online account, and you will see that we have assigned you to a date, a place, and a professor for Literature Humanities. Every student will be in a section of Literature Humanities, and away you go. Half of the incoming school for college will be assigned to the university writing class, and the other half will be assigned to Frontiers of Science. We can't tell you right now which of these two you will get, because we don't know. But at some point in late August, you will be assigned to one or the other, and then obviously in the spring semester they flip-flop. You will stay in your second semester of Literature Humanities, but you will get the opposing University Writing or Frontiers. So what that means is that in your fall semester and in your spring semester, you have some options. You have some classes that you can pick from. to fill up your schedule. And I have emphasized already on this webinar that we hope you will consider honestly taking just 4 classes. Here the slide says 4 or 5, that's fine. What I actually tell my advisees is to register for 5. Start with 5. Have 5 on your schedule. And there is a generous drop date whereby you can drop your 5th class a couple weeks into the semester if that's what you want to do, and your advising dean can help you with that, and end up maybe with 4. In any case, why don't you, we recommend at this point that you look wide and far for possible other classes that you want to take. As it says here, continuing a language, if you started one in high school and you want to keep it going, that's a very good idea, especially if you're thinking about study abroad, or especially if you're thinking about a major that requires a language. So language is a perfectly good 3rd class to take. It's not required, but it's a nice place to start. And then with your 4th or 5th class, again, it depends on your own personal interest, but a good place to start is in testing out a possible major. So if you were thinking about, if you have an instinct to pursue a certain major, your 1st semester of your 1st year is a perfect time to start that. So if you're interested in political science, look for one of our great introductory political science classes. If you're thinking about religious studies, then you want to jump into one of your early intro courses in the religious studies department. And what this will do, obviously, is it will test out your interest in that field, and hopefully you love it and you continue with it. Or if it's the case that it's not quite what you imagined, you found out early enough in your Columbia career that you can take the spring semester to jump into another discipline. So just in a bird's eye view, that approach is healthy and perfect, and something that we'd encourage you to think about. Let's go to the next, yeah.
Just
Aileen,
one second, I did receive a question which is somewhat relative to what you were discussing, Chad.
Great.
Jane asked, are LitHum allotments entirely random? Yes, so the pre-registrations in LitHum and in University Writing Frontiers are random. But there is, if you find that there's a conflict that you're aware of, there are means in place for you to petition to have those pre-registered courses changed. So don't panic. There's a means for you to change that.
Thank you.
Okay, so next slide.
So this is still me, and I would just ask everybody to look at this slide quickly. Don't get too hung up on it. It is important to note that there are some science disciplines that require a certain amount of attention if you're really thinking about any of these disciplines. It's also important to think about the possibility that you might be interested in being a pre-medical student, that is preparing yourself to go to medical school. If that's you, if you fall into these categories of either a science or one of these more rigorous social sciences, or perhaps pre-med, then you should look at this slide. Otherwise, avert your eyes, because we don't want you to think, especially if you're destined to be a humanities student, that you have to worry too much about some of these hard science requirements in your 1st semester of your 1st year of college. But as you can see, the big one that keeps popping up on this list is calculus. And to be honest, a good math class, a good class in calculus in your 1st year of college is a perfectly useful, good thing to do. It happens to meet a lot of the requirements for the majors you're looking at. It happens to be a pre-med requirement. And in fact, if you took a calculus class even as a person destined to study humanities, that math class actually works as one of your science requirements in the core curriculum. So these are some of the questions and topics you'll want to talk about, again, with your advising dean when you get here. You're also going to have, this is important to note, and you'll see this in your schedule book for new student orientation when you get here. There's a chance in the middle of orientation on the Wednesday, I believe, to go to something called the Academic Resource Fair, which is a great event, and I'm going to encourage everybody to go to it. Again, don't worry about the day and time too much. It'll be on your schedule when you get to campus. The Academic Resource Fair is an event that we organize for students during orientation where you will have a chance to go into a big auditorium and meet representatives and faculty members from every one of our departments on campus. And it's a perfect opportunity, for example, if you have a hint of an interest in biology during the Academic Resource Fair, which runs for a couple hours, to walk up to the table, the biology table, introduce yourself to the faculty members or the representatives from the biology department there, put yourself on their listserv, and ask general questions about class registration or research opportunities. They might ask you what level of preparation you had from high school. It's a real good first opportunity to meet with a faculty member face-to-face. So anyway, enough of slide 10. Let's move on.
Okay, so just to talk about the actual logistics of registering in the fall. First-year students will have the opportunity to register starting on Friday of new student orientation. Registration occurs through SSOL, Student Services Online, and you will be permitted into the system on that Friday. Just when you get into the system, you'll see that some of the courses have already been registered and some might even be full. That's because our returning students have already registered. They registered during a spring pre-registration period. So you will be registering on Friday before the returning students will get into the system on Saturday. One thing that you ought to know is that registration, it's not a single transaction. So you don't go in on Friday and register and then you're done and can't change anything. But rather it's a process, because you'll see when you on SSOL you'll see what we call registration appointments, and you'll have them basically every day for 2 weeks, during which you will be permitted into the system to make changes to the registration that you might have completed on the first day. You can make changes throughout what we call the add-drop period, the first 2 weeks of classes. It's a time, we also call it a shopping period, where you can shop. You can go and sit in on a class and decide or sit in 2 classes and decide which one you prefer. So there are opportunities to make changes, again, to your registration over the 2-week period. And then to some degree, with some restriction, you can also make changes after the first 2 weeks of the semester online through an electronic add-drop period, but that again is probably too technical right now, and you can discuss that with your advising dean when you arrive on campus. How to register? So the slide shows that there are 2 resources for you to start looking at classes, to try to build that unique schedule that you will be building, the directory of classes and the Columbia College Bulletin. If one of my colleagues might post a link in the chat box for 2 of these for these resources, that would be great. The Columbia College Bulletin, I would probably recommend that you start with that, because if you log on to the bulletin, you'll see that the courses are arranged by department, and so you can search for courses by department. The directory of classes actually lists all of the courses that are taught throughout the university, so there's a lot going on there. If you look at this slide, you'll see the type of information that these resources will give you. You'll see, the course title, the course number, which is really the department designation, such as Econ 1105 here. And then there's a call number, which is that 5-digit number with the 3-digit extension. You'll see when the course is being offered, the day and time. You'll see the instructor's name, and you'll see some enrollment information there. If you see the more info blue box there, that's what I was talking about earlier, that if you click on that, you might see a sample syllabus and might see some textbook information. Some professors put that up in time. So I think what's important is just, it's the 5-digit call number that is unique for each section. That's the number that you need to you'll need to register for a particular course. But actually, when you go into the registration system on SSOL, it's actually much easier than what we're actually showing you here, because you'll be able to search for courses through the subject, through the course name, and it'll show you all the sections that are available, and then you click Add. again, I mentioned the registration appointments. These are periods of time that you will be permitted by the system to go into SSOL and start adding classes. But before your registration appointment, you can actually go into SSOL and start building a schedule through this new function called the wish list. It's kind of like an online shopping bag. If you do some online shopping, you could choose some courses that you'd like to take and add them to this wish list. And so it's saved there. So by the time that you are able to enter the registration system, you can just click add and you'll be able to register in a matter of seconds. The last point that I want to make about registration is that, as I said, upperclassmen have already registered. There might be a course that you want to take that is full. We have a new function as well called the electronic waitlist. So if a course is full, you will have the option to put yourself on a wait list. And then it's the responsibility of the instructor to monitor that wait list and add students into the class from the wait list when registrations fluctuate. So I think that's a really important piece of information, is that you'll see that enrollments are in flux throughout the first 2 weeks of classes. Students enroll in courses and then decide, they might sit in the class in the first day or two and decide they really don't want to take it and then drop that and add something else. So registration, again, it's a process, because you might have to check back into the system and see if a course that was full at one point might have a seat available at another point. But, take some time over the summer to think about what those the fourth or potentially fifth course, elective that you might want to take. Try to sketch out some possible schedules and backup plans for registration. And of course, this is one of the main things that you will be discussing with your advising dean during new student orientation. So I think that we have completed our presentation. I would just like to open it up. We have about 11 minutes or so for general questions.
Right. So Aileen, and I'm looking at a couple questions right here.
Oh, great.
And then one of the questions has to do with any student asks, is there anything else you would recommend for us to do this summer? And that's a good question. And I think the easiest answer is relax and enjoy your summer. You will get to campus and things will be moving very quickly, and it will be pretty intense. You'll be transitioning. It'll be a new life for you. You'll be making new friends. The workload will kick in pretty quickly, and you'll be getting to know our wonderful city, New York City. If you don't know it, it's going to be a great place to live for the next 4 years of your life. So rest this summer. Enjoy your summer. Be with your family and your friends, and just try to unplug your brain and be well rested for when you get to Columbia in August, in late August. We look forward to seeing everybody, that's for sure. But that would be my key recommendation. Aileen, do you have any questions that have popped up that tempt you?
I do not. Are there any questions out there, colleagues?
I have one here. I have a new one that just popped up, which is, can I take classes from other Columbia schools? The engineering school, the architecture school. That's a good question. And I would address it two ways. One is, one of the links we've already sent you is to the Columbia College Bulletin. And that bulletin, if there is one other thing you can do this summer, is to spend some time with the bulletin. It's online, it's electronic, it's ready for you right now. And it really is full of some important golden nuggets of information about your education and time at Columbia. For example, there's a whole section about how undergraduates can or cannot take classes in other Columbia University schools. Every school has a different policy about whether undergraduates can or cannot enroll. And the college has policies about what credits it receives from the different schools. So there's a whole section on that, and I recommend that you take it. The other place to go within the bulletin is every department has a section in the bulletin, so econ, history, biology, all the different departments, and they have a tab where they list all of their classes. And as you'll see as you drill through it, some departments allow for you to take upper-level graduate courses in different schools. And they're in there if you look for them. But those are the two places that I would recommend that you would look.
Great. So I received a question that asked, why do some courses not open at all on the CU Directory of Classes? I cannot see anything except for an error message. So, I mean, there are a couple of possible reasons for that. One is, as I said, the Directory of Classes covers all of the schools of the university and all the courses offered by the university. So there might be a blocking mechanism that undergraduates might not be able to see some courses that are not available to undergraduates. The other thing to keep in mind is that the Directory of Classes is constantly being changed up and being updated up until the beginning of the semester. So course offerings can still be in flux. So that's my sense of why you might not get you might not see the information for particular classes.
Nicole Felmus just asked a good question about history. And this is, I'll answer it about history, but it's a good question for learning and finding your way through the directory. Nicole asks about taking history classes in a possible history major and the issue of prerequisites. So some departments are very strict about the sequence through which you take classes. So the best example is econ. If you want to major in econ or take econ classes, they're very strict about what sequence you take it. So each class will have a prerequisite, or it might have two prerequisites. History is at the opposite end of the spectrum, and our students jump right into some pretty sophisticated, excellent history classes, and we have a really good history department. And so the question is, can you start with a 3,000 level class? And my answer is yes, you can. There are two rules of thumb, though, for first-year students about whether they're prepared for different types of history classes, which is go to the academic resource fair during orientation and walk up to the history table and ask the faculty member and ask them about specific history classes or your general interest in being a history major. And the second option is to show up at the first day of class in whatever history class you're interested in. Listen to what the history professor has to say at the front of the classroom, and then feel free to approach the professor after class and say, I'm a first-year student, here's my background, here are my AP scores, do you think I'm ready for this class? And you'll get very honest, open assessments and answers to your questions. So that approach can actually work for all classes and all departments to try to find the right placement level for you when you want to take a certain class.
All right. So I received a question from Lynn Tang, who asked, I see that economics is a special concentration. What does that mean? I'm not sure where you see that. Economics is not a special concentration. Economics offers a regular major and a regular concentration and a number of joint majors. But what a special concentration is a type of concentration that cannot satisfy the major or concentration requirement for the degree, meaning that one of your degree requirements is to finish a major, or a concentration, meaning that we do not, in fact, require you to finish a major. You can actually fulfill the sort of depth requirement with a concentration, which is slightly smaller than a major and may have fewer distribution requirements. But a special concentration is a different concentration because it's not a standalone. You cannot take a special concentration and be able to fulfill that depth requirement with a special concentration. It's intended to be combined with another standalone major or standalone concentration. We do have some special concentrations. The more prominent ones are we have a business management special concentration, a special concentration in linguistics, and I believe we still have one in sustainable development. But economics is not a special concentration. You can do a concentration in economics and that will fill that depth requirement of the degree. Any other questions? Chad?
Aileen, I don't have any more, and I do see that a lot of questions have been posted and answered by our colleagues. So I wonder if it's time for Josh to step back in and help us wrap this up, because I think there's some information about the fact that this event is, I believe, recorded, and we're going to try to answer whatever questions were asked that we couldn't ask, either in the chat windows or verbally.
Hi, Chad. This is Josh signing back in.
Hello, Josh.
Hello. So I am going to do the sign off. I wanted to thank everybody for participating. We had about 40 attendees, which is fantastic. As you can see, lots of questions and answers were given. We are recording this session, and as soon as we can convert the file and put it on our webpage, it'll be posted with the goal of sometime by tomorrow. Also, if you go to the file option at the top of your GoToMeeting panel, you will see the Save Chat Log. You can do that, and then it'll record, it'll save all of the questions and answers to a Word doc, which may be helpful for you to refer to later. We'll also be doing that, and we'll post that online for anybody who missed it. So if you want to re-listen to the broadcast, you're welcome to. If you want to invite your friends to listen to it, I think that's great. But please also know that we're going to be hosting another CC Chat webinar in 2 weeks on Wednesday, July 30th, this time in the evening from 6 to 7. It also will be recorded, and the chat log will be posted as well. And then for anybody who has friends in the School of Engineering and SEAS, tonight we're going to have a chat from 6 to 7, and another one in 2 weeks on Wednesday, July 30th from 1 to 2. I believe that is everything I have to report here. So thank you once again. Please do comment on the Class of 2018 Facebook page what you thought of this event, and please do encourage others to join in our future broadcasts, as well as check out the recording and the chat log that will be posted online. Okay, so I'm not going to end this just yet, so I want to give everybody a chance to record, to save the chat log, because once I end this broadcast, that feature is not possible. So please do that, and then I'll end this broadcast in about a minute. So thank you again, and if Aileen or Chad have any final words, it's all yours.
I would just say thank you to everybody for coming, and we look forward to seeing you pretty soon here on campus.
Yes, I reiterate that message. Have a great summer, and we'll see you during New Student Orientation.
Take care.